Welcome back to Shepherd's Table. We are going to sit down and have a little bit of a conversation with Pastor Shane, so thank you for joining me again.
Anytime.
We wanted to flesh out a little bit more of the conversation about people not understanding how to have disagreements and how, the younger generation and social media is playing a role into that.
It very much is. I would say social media, certainly the technology that promotes or allows for this kind of social media has definitely been a huge issue. I am not personally against technology. I think it's great. I think it's made our lives more efficient in many ways, easier in a lot of ways, but it's also, of course, the bad with the good, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And one of the reasons why a lot of people cannot have a decent conversation about anything even slightly controversial is because in order to win, if that is your goal, it's easier to do so if you can dehumanize your opponent.
Absolutely.
And when you're debating over social media, you already have that work done for you.
And it's easier because it's not face-to-face.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So you're arguing with a machine. Yeah. Even though there is a human being on the other end, you can say pretty much whatever you want. You don't have to worry about how that affects them because they can only really express it with emojis. Right? And so you have this back and forth that really gets nowhere because you don't have to really even come up with any kind of coherent argument. You just have to be the better typer.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I think that there's they just removed a whole bunch of bots from I think all of the major platforms, and people are realizing that they weren't actually even arguing with people. It was rage bait, for lack of a better term, from AI to create controversy and to create conflict.
Well, and what better way to keep us divided? I know during our panel discussion, we were talking about diversity and unity, or Patrick brought that up. And certainly that has caused more disunity than I think almost anything in history, and much easier.
Yeah. Because
of course technology draws people in. It's fun to use. Yeah. And therefore it's easy to get trapped into that mode of thinking where you can remain so thoroughly fixed on one end of a spectrum and never really have to explain yourself because you're arguing with essentially, as you said, a lot of times just bots.
Yeah.
Right? And that it's very easy to keep us divided if you want to.
And it creates that conflict in. Not everything has to be a conflict. I
Absolutely.
Love to go back to the days where you could disagree and not hate each other.
Right.
And I think that's why people took politics and religion out of regular conversations, because nobody knows how to have them.
One of the best debates I've seen in recent memory, and I've watched on YouTube recently, is the one between Ronald Reagan and Walter Mondale, where Reagan cracks a joke about Mondale's age. Actually, Mondale mentions Reagan's age, and Reagan says, yes, we shouldn't make this about age because, then people will realize how young you are and how how inexperienced you are to hold this role. And even Mondale laughed at that. Yeah. What happened to that?
Yep.
Right? They disagreed on a lot of things, but the debate was a lot healthier and more people connected to it. Yeah. To both men, actually. Because here you have a man who was very quippy and a man who could take a joke.
Absolutely.
And respond in such a way that made him seem more human.
Absolutely.
What happened to that? There's lots of answers to that. Certainly social media did not help.
I think social media and an education system that teaches you what to think, not how to think.
Yeah.
And that you're allowed to have certain ideas. And it's dangerous to say people can't have other ideas. I can disagree with you entirely, and I can state my case. But the second that I'm told I'm not allowed to have my opinions, that's where we get into dangerous territory.
Yeah. Critical thinking is not taught as a skill anymore. No. And that's really unfortunate because, as you said, I think a lot of these issues maybe not get resolved, but at least people would have a better understanding where the other side stands and why. And you can articulate better yourself.
Absolutely.
Right?
And I think that's where Christianity, at the base of it, is we don't have a problem with people questioning
not at all.
Opinions, our positions, because in the bottom line, end of the day, it's based in truth.
It is. And I've often said from the pulpit even that Christianity is the thinking religion. You're allowed to think. You're allowed to question.
Yep.
You're allowed to interrogate Scripture.
Yep.
I don't understand this. This seems really bad. What does this mean? Let's sit down and go through it. Let's see what other theologians have written about it. Let's see what Pastor Patrick thinks and Pastor Roland, right? Let's get a conversation going and see what this what we can come up with here.
Read through the Old Testament. God did not sugarcoat it.
Not at all.
The good, the bad, the ugly, it's all in there. And some of it's pretty dark. And I think that's where we've run into issues now is people want to sugarcoat history, and God didn't sugarcoat history.
Not at all.
How can we do that, right?
Yeah, I don't know that we can, because it just depends on who's in charge. The victors write history. We were talking about, the Alberta separation was one of our topics. And it always brings to mind, and I don't know how it can't, the U.S. Civil War and some of the issues that were surrounding that. What made the Union the hero in the story is because the Confederacy lost. Yeah. If the Confederacy had won, that whole history would have been written in a very, very different way.
Yeah.
Right.
It makes you look back too. People have written history, what's actually true and what's not. But that's a rabbit hole for another
time. Absolutely. Yeah, we can get down that some other time. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you, Pastor Shane, for joining us. And this has been a fantastic conversation. And thank you for joining us for this episode of The Shepherd's Table.